set up.
Good.
Okay, we're recording. So I'm Anna Segal, and today is Wednesday, August 16th, 2023. And I have the privilege of speaking with Denise Pollis, and I'll let Denise introduce herself a little bit.
I am Denise Singer Pollis. My family, both the Singer side and the Schwartz side, have been in Dallas for 2 generations. I am very lucky to be a second generation Dallasite, although I do live across 635 in Plano. My brother refuses to come north of 635. He lives in Dallas, and hopefully he'll get interviewed also. And as I was just telling you, I am a volunteer for High. I absolutely love all of my friends at High. I got involved through Joe Milkus and Shelley Van Derben. They invited us to come to a High gala, if you will, High Life, at the Perot years and years ago. And since then, Joe and I had, for years, involved High, Joe's foundation, the Kalman and Ida Woolens Foundation, paid for tickets for 10 of the High residents to come to the Plano Symphony. And we did guild programs for them, and symphony, different groups out of the symphony itself came to different houses, and we've had picnics with them, and it has evolved where Anshe Torah now has an annual picnic. When I was on the board at Anshe, on the Chazak board, I don't think, I started on the Chazak board, but then I was on Anshe's board also, and we started having the annual picnics at Anshe, and that way we could have more people and involve the Chazak, the seniors at Anshe, which was great because so many of the seniors are not from Dallas, so they weren't aware of High, so it has given both High and Anshe more opportunity to support one another. And I have one son who, thank God, his name is Scott Brian Davidoff, and he's married to my precious little daughter, Nicole, since Scott is my only child. They have given me 2 incredible grandsons, Jake Linton Davidoff, who is a chef at a 1 Michelin star restaurant in Chicago, and the group for the restaurant is called Alinea, and it's 3 Michelin stars, the flagship. So this is his first real job out of college. So he graduated May a year ago, and in August, the very beginning of August, he started at Next, and he has been promoted 3 times, so I'm very proud of him. My youngest grandson's name is Evan Alexander Davidoff, and he is in his last semester at UTD, and he has already got a full-time job. He interned with a small company here in Dallas, a restaurant group, as it turns out. And he is in the finance department, and as an intern, they asked him if he would like to, the second week he was there, they asked him if he would like to work part-time when he went to school this semester, and he said yes, of course. And then a week later, they fired their accountant and asked him if they held the accountant position, if he would be interested in that. He said yes, twist my arm. And so he is starting at a salary even higher than his brother makes now in Chicago at Next, which we laugh about. And they are both incredible young men, and I'm very, very proud of them. They were born in Plano, and let's see, I am married to a wonderful man. We will celebrate our 39th wedding anniversary September the 8th, and October 21st we will be together 40 years. We met in California and Silicon Valley across a conference room table. And we met in 1983 and married in 1984. I keep myself very busy as a volunteer. Primarily, I'm working my way out of over 20 years on the HOA board for our little community in Plano called Rock Creek Place. And I am currently a landscape chair, and the city of Plano has just replaced all of our screening walls. So I'm in a battle to put our little community back together, the flower beds and irrigation system and everything. So as soon as that's done, I'm going to actually be an interviewer also for the Historical Society. So I'm very proud of that. My children just bought a house, about a year ago, May, when Jake graduated across from Providence, Rhode Island. Jake went to school at Johnson & Wales in Providence, and they fell in love with it visiting for the 4 years. And they bought their home across the bay in Bristol. This is a small house, not a huge house. They've just finished remodeling it, and my husband and I are looking forward to going up there for a couple of weeks, if not a month, after I get this project finished.
Especially in the summer.
Especially in the summer, yes. The kids are going to be up there in the summer. That goal, they went up in the middle of May, as a matter of fact, and they were going to come back the middle of September, but my daughter-in-law ended up getting a new job, a promotion, and while they both could work from home up there, they had to come back 2 weeks ago because she started her new job. And it'll yet to be seen if she'll be able to work from home or spend as much time, but they'll spend as much vacation time as they can up there. And my husband and I will be doing the rest as much as we can. My professional background is administrative management, project management, product management, program management, and for the first on-site telecommunications company called Rome, which is Richardson, Oshman, Lowenstern, and Maxfield. And I was fortunate enough to be able to know all four of the founders. And I spent 24 years and 1 month before they laid me off on 9/11. Which I expected it to come. It was not a big surprise. They were doing all kinds of, the whole country was laying off at that point, right-sizing they called it. And then I got a job a month later with one of our providers, one of our material providers, a small software company. And I worked for them for 3.5 years before they laid me off, which was fine. Again, the management, wasn't such that they could really sustain my position. And then I went to work for Blockbuster. Before Blockbuster kind of went by the wayside, I was in the real estate department as they were starting to close stores. So in 2007, in October, my husband, they laid me off for the third time, and I went, third time's a charm. My husband said I could retire in January anyway, so I said I would feel bad if I somehow, at my ripe old age, if you will, at the time, took a job for a single mom who needed it. And so I just retired. It just wasn't worth unemployment and doing the job search when I knew everybody was in the same situation. So that's when I picked up, if you will, because I was already volunteering for the symphony. I was already volunteering for the HOA. I was president of the HOA at the time. And I decided that it was time to retire and just do more volunteer work. So that brings us to today.
Wow, it sounds like you've been involved in some really wonderful things. I want to go back because you are second generation, and that's unusual in Dallas now. If you could tell us a little bit about your family of origin, and I know you brought some pictures that we can try to put up later.
Good,
okay?
Good, perfect. I'll start with my father's parents. and his upbringing. They, my earliest recollection, if you will, and unfortunately back then we didn't ask as many questions as a lot of the kids, because of the interviews and everything, are asking their families. And which is wonderful, because we will have a collection of histories. So my dad's family, my grandfather was Saul Singer, Singer, and he came in through New York, of course. I unfortunately don't know what the full name was, but it ended up being Singer. He had 9 brothers and sisters, 8 brothers and 1 sister. And they said the most of the family settled in Huntington, West Virginia. Zadie came down here to Dallas, and I do have a history that he hand wrote of how he got here, but unfortunately I can't remember it right now. And I hope to provide that to the Historical Society. He met Bubby. Okay, so Zadie was from Russia, as far as we can figure out. My Bubby was from Poland, and her name was Lena Wolf. I don't know anything about her parents. They had 4 boys, who my dad was the oldest, Frank Singer, and then came my Uncle Milton Singer, my Uncle Irvin, and my youngest uncle, Paul, God bless him, is still living. Thank heavens. They settled in South Dallas, of course, like everybody else, and Daddy went to Forest Avenue High School, and he met Mother. He also went to elementary school, and I'm trying to, wait a minute, Old City Park Elementary School. And there is a bench for his 90th birthday. My brother and I bought him a bench with a plaque on it, and it's at Old City Park. So if everybody goes down to the historical village in Old City Park, they'll be able to see it. Let's see.
So what was the business that your paternal grandparents had? Do you know?
Yes, do I know? Zadie went into business with my cousin Sharon Wolf's grandfather, and they opened a grocery store in South Dallas. Don't ask me the name of the street, but it is in deep South Dallas, behind Forest Avenue High School, down west of Fair Park. And I remember clearly sitting on the counter bagging groceries at the age of 4 or 5 for Zadie while he rang everybody up. He taught me how to bag groceries. You put the eggs on the top is the lesson I always hear when I go to the grocery store. And so it's to this day, it gives me a thrill to bag our groceries as they're coming, we're being checked in, or if my husband's checking us out. So they had also a big meat cooler in the grocery store. And my Uncle Milton started a wholesale meat business out of the grocery store, out of the cooler, in the freezer in the back. My Uncle Paul and my Uncle Irvin worked in the grocery store. We would go every Saturday from North Dallas, when we moved to North Dallas, and we would go do our grocery shopping. So that's, I remember spending weekends when Mother and Daddy went out. They'd bring us from North Dallas down to Colonial Avenue, which was where the Singer family home was. Uncle Milton and Aunt Shirley had already gotten married. Uncle Irvin ended up being a bachelor, and one of my fondest memories is my Uncle Paul coming back home from the Korean War and standing at the door waiting and seeing the taxi cab come up and him coming up the walk. I don't want to cry, but it brings back fond memories. And yeah, so that's pretty much my dad's side of the family. I have lots of cousins, thank God, and we're very, very close. We always have Passover together. First night of Passover is always the Singer family. And of course, we always miss our mothers and fathers who are not longer with us.
So did the grocery store morph into the meat business?
No, the grocery store came first and then the meat business came. And it was just my Uncle Milton who had it. So the grocery store was Uncle Paul, Uncle Irvin, and Zadie's.
And did that eventually close?
Yes, okay. Yeah. As the big, stores came in, my dad and mom opened after Daddy came back from the war. They got married in October 24th, 1941. Excuse me, August 24th, 1941. And they got married, and 8 months later, Daddy went overseas for 4.5 years. So Daddy always called me on November 4th or 5th, whatever the date was, when he came home, and congratulated me as my birthday, because I was born on August the 8th, 1946. So, he said, okay, fine, you're now,
So what was your dad in business, or what did he do?
He actually, when he came back, he had been working for an auto parts store in South Dallas before he left, and all the young Jewish men were promised jobs when they came home, so they didn't have to worry about that. So Daddy went to work back and I'm sorry, I don't remember the auto parts, the name of the business or anything, but that was wonderful. Then he went and sold seat covers. Then he went and eventually he retired. Well, he sat in his reclining chair for, I don't know, maybe 2 weeks before my mother looked at him and said, Frank Singer, we will not be married 40 years if you don't get your rear end up off of that chair and go do something. So he went and bought a minivan. He rented a small warehouse, and he went around to all of his friends who were in the automotive parts business, the different, phases of it at the time, and started job lotting all of the parts that they sold, radiators or fuel pumps or whatever it was. So that's how a lot of the soldiers from World War II stuck together, and they knew each other. They knew each other before because they were all in ACA together, and they all went to Forest Avenue High School, and so they all went into different related businesses and all stayed together. So Daddy eventually, he and Mommy opened up automotive parts and hardware stores. Maybe I got the stories backwards about the van. Maybe they had the automotive parts and hardware stores first, and then came the van after he and Mommy finally retired. But the stores were wonderful. We go down, when we go to Dolphin Road to the Sheriff Israel Cemetery. We all grew up at Sheriff Israel, and we go down and pass to the cemetery and then go past the store. My husband takes me on a historical tour, if you will.
Right, family tour.
Yeah.
What about your grandmother? So we have on your paternal side, we have your grandparents that owned the grocery store.
Right.
And do you know where your grandmother on the paternal side, you said she came from Poland?
Yes, I have no idea where. I have no idea about the history because I just didn't think to ask back then. I didn't know to ask. Mother and Daddy the family didn't talk about the history at the time, unfortunately. My bubby, Lena, my bubby didn't work. She never worked. My fondest memory of my bubby is her sewing machine, number one, which I never saw her sew on, but her sewing machine. And the house, I would have given, in this day and age, anything to have that house. It had a wraparound porch. It had the French doors with the glass door handles going into the dining room. We had Passover and Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Everything was at Bubby's house. And when Bubby was not a great cook, but luckily all the sisters-in-law were wonderful cooks. So and all the cousins got together that way. But I remember spending the night at Bubby's, and Zadie and Uncle Irvin slept in one bedroom in the front of the house, and Bubby had the back bedroom with the double bed. And so Uncle Irvin was relegated to the couch when Mark came over, my brother, Mark and I. And so he got to sleep in the other bed with Zadie, in the room with Zadie, and I got to sleep with Bubby. And I'll never forget, she had 500 pillows on her bed, number one. And number two, she always used to rub my back and sing to me in Yiddish. So that's just, one of the fondest memories. She was a tough old broad, I'll say that. She was wonderful, but I love my Bubby and Zadie. My Zadie and I were the closest. Just, he taught himself how to read, we always laugh. Taught himself how to read, reading the Reader's Digest. Wow. That's how he learned English. That and the radio, of course, so.
That's great.
Yeah, so that kind of takes care of my singer side.
And on your maternal side, are they also longtime Dallasites?
Yes, I'm second generation on their side too. My Bubby Schwartz, and I'm wearing her beads, and I had them shortened and made earrings out of them. They weren't, but these are Russian amber, and she brought over two pair. This pair and a ruby pair. And the ruby colored pair, I'm hoping that my cousin Sherwin has given to his son. I think my cousin Dina, his daughter, who has passed away, and my cousin Cheryl, we were so close. She's passed away, so unfortunately, they passed away very young. I'm hoping that the other pair is still in the family because they're up in Connecticut and New Jersey. We hope to see them when we go to Rhode Island and spend some time up there with them when we have a home base closer up there for short periods of time. My Zadie, so my Bubby's name was Dina Schwartz. I had no idea what her maiden name was. Okay, my Zadie's name was Isidore Schwartz, and Zadie was a tailor. I don't know what Bubby did. Well, I do know what Bubby did. She had 11 children, of which 9 lived. Okay, so in fact, one of the children, a baby named Annie, they were walking down by the Mercantile Bank across from Neiman Marcus and in downtown Dallas. And Annie was in the pram, and my mother was walking beside Annie. Annie was the youngest girl at the time. My mother was the next youngest girl. And there was a gunfight somehow. I think the police were chasing somebody, and the bullet ricocheted off of the wall and hit Annie and killed her in the pram, in the stroller. Well, it was a buggy, back then they didn't have strollers. And so Mother, used to told us that story. I was raised by really 3 families, my immediate family and then both sides of the family. My brother and I, the whole family was, all the nieces and nephews and all of us. It was fabulous. We always spent birthdays, my birthday especially. My Aunt Sarah was the oldest girl, my Aunt Connie was next, and then Mother. On the boys' side, my Uncle Morris was head of the Selective Service, the last head of the Selective Service for Texas. And so he and Aunt Maggie never had children. Aunt Maggie was actually a full-blooded Cherokee Indian, I believe Cherokee, I could be wrong, but from Oklahoma. Uncle Morris, they lived in Austin, of course, and we used to go down there. My daddy was a traveling salesman for, before he opened the stores. And so he would take us 1 week out of the year. We would go down and we would do a trip with him. And when we got to Corpus Christi, when we got to Galveston first, okay, we'd stay in a hotel, of course, and we'd get to play on the beach. And then we'd go down to Corpus Christi, make a stop, and we got to play on the beach again. So that was our family vacation, was him working. Now, it was very interesting because those are some of the fondest memories too that I have. And I just lost my train of thought, please forgive me. So we will go back and to the Schwartz family. Oh, talk about vacations. Oh, he and Mother would take the other week, the real vacation week, and then they would go off and do so. But we'd always stay with an aunt and aunt and uncle or cousins or somebody, and then they'd trade off. So we'd get their children when they went on vacation, which is great. I don't think families do that much anymore, but it was wonderful. One of my favorite things was the Baker Hotel in Mineral Wells, Texas. And they're redoing it now. They're going to bring it back to a hotel, to a resort. And all the fathers were traveling salesmen at the time. So they would bring us on the weekend. We would leave Saturday morning early because they would come home Friday night. The men would come home Friday night. We'd have a caravan from Dallas over to Mineral Wells. We would spend the weekend with our fathers and our mothers, of course, and each other. And then the men would leave. And they, on Sunday night, they'd come back to Dallas and then they'd go do their traveling thing. And we'd stay the whole week at the Baker Hotel. And it was so much fun because we'd have the run at the hotel during the week. And we get to go up and down on the elevators. Everybody, the lifeguards knew us, so we could go to the pool by ourselves. We could go and get breakfast and lunch by ourselves. Well, usually our mothers were up and around at lunch, and we'd have that by the pool. The breakfast, we'd all congregate down, all the kids would congregate down and have our own breakfast in the morning, just charge it to the room. It was fabulous at the time. These are the fondest memories I think a child, especially a 77-year-old child can have.
So it sounds like you have wonderful memories. Maybe this is a good time. If you could hold up...
Sure. I'm going to put my glasses on so I can see.
If you could hold up, let's say, the smaller one first.
Yes.
And let's see. Let me bring it a little... Can you bring it a little bit closer?
Yeah, I can come closer. I'm on wheels.
And just hold it up a little bit so that they can see it in the camera.
Yeah.
And turn
I'll put it down.
There's a bit of
You
a
tell
glare.
me where.
Hold it up a little bit more. Okay. So without going into who all the people are, is this one side of the family? Or?
No, it's mixed.
Okay.
Okay. So this is Schwartz, my mother's side. This is my mother's side. This is both sides. My Zadie Singer, this way.
Hold it a little straighter. Okay, that's better because
Okay.
there's a glare.
Okay, my Zadie Singer and my Uncle Lewis. So Zadie on the Singer side, Uncle Lewis on the Schwartz side. And my Aunt Helen, my Uncle Jack was the youngest brother on the Schwartz side. They used to play dominoes. Every time we'd get together for a family party, they would play dominoes. Okay, this top picture here is my mother and father and my brother.
Oh.
Okay, that was probably close to Mark's bar mitzvah, our graduation.
Bar mitzvah,
yeah, something like that. This, like I said, that's Schwartz side. Okay, forgive me.
Hold that up a little bit.
Okay, me and Santa Claus, because we used to go downtown Dallas. That was the only place to go see Santa Claus, so we would go see Santa.
Was it Neiman's? Was it?
Yes, it was at Neiman's, of course. So can I do that? Does that look
yes,
good?
That's
okay.
Good.
This is a Schwartz. This is my Aunt Helen, Uncle Jack, David, and Stevie, and Lynn. Okay, so this is my mother's youngest brother and his wife, and David is a cardiologist just getting ready to retire from Legacy Heart, right? Okay, Stevie is the middle child. He just had his first grandson. He's got 2 granddaughters, and he just had his first grandson, God bless him. And Lenny is the baby. Okay, this is my brother and me. And we lived just north of Love Field. I went to Stephen Foster Elementary School, Thomas Jefferson High School. And this is my cousin Cheryl, who passed away, and my daddy, and I can't tell who that is. That's me in the tree. We had a big mimosa tree in our front yard. And these are the 4 boys, okay? This is Mark's bar mitzvah, so that must be graduation up at the top. My Uncle Paul, my Uncle Milton, Daddy, Mark. This is Brent Stein. Brent Stein, okay, they're all family, Dallas family too. My Uncle Irvin and my Zadie, singer.
That's lovely.
So that's that one.
Yeah, here, I can take
Okay,
it.
thank you. Do you want me to do this one too?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Let's see. Yeah.
This
Okay.
is-
That one shows up better, yeah.
Does
that's
it?
good. If you
It's
could-
larger.
Okay.
Okay. So this is my son Scotty for his bar mitzvah. And if you'll notice, he's got his tallis very strangely draped. He broke his arm right before he broke his bone in his top of his hand right before the bar mitzvah. So we had to cover over the cast. That's him, he and I when we were single. Mommy and Daddy at their 50th wedding anniversary. Mommy and Daddy at Hannah and Alex Mosesman's. They were closest friends in the whole wide world. So that's at their 50th wedding anniversary. This is Scotty in the center. This is Scotty, obviously, my son. And the tiny picture you may not be able to see is when I was president of my dorm down at the University of Houston. This picture, I was flower girl. The only wedding I've ever been in, I was flower girl for my cousin Idell's wedding over in Fort Worth. Daddy and Mommy, it looks like on one of their cruises. And then this is when my brother and I, when I married Ronnie Davidoff, my first husband, Scott's father. So I just thought that those would be
These are
fun
lovely.
to share.
Absolutely, absolutely. So before we finish, I'll just ask you, so your grandparents lived in South Dallas.
Yes.
Did you ever live in South Dallas?
No.
Okay.
The closest to South Dallas I lived was on Coles Manor. And Coles Manor, if anybody remembers the ACS building off of Central Expressway. So if you're going towards town, it was on the left-hand side. And it was right before you got to Haskell. So Haskell and 75, which of course 75 now wasn't 75 then like we know it. And every time we go past there, of course the ACS building is closed. My husband actually took me over to see if we could find Coles Manor, and we think that it's been torn down and apartments have gone up. You know, that's the progress in the city. So I live just north of, I was born and raised just north of downtown. 1951, we moved up to High Grove Drive, which is between Marsh and Midway, south of Walnut Hill. Walnut Hill didn't exist, and I'm sure it existed, but we were the last, I get some, thank you, excuse me, we were the last populated street before the Red River.
Okay.
Excuse me, so like I said, I went to Stephen Foster Elementary School, Cary Middle School, or junior high we called it back then, and excuse me, and Thomas Jefferson High School. So when Thomas Jefferson got hit by the tornado and everything, I was devastated. And now, of course, that they've rebuilt it and they've incorporated. I went to high school before I went to middle school. Cary was not finished in September by the time we started school. So we spent the first semester at Thomas Jefferson while they finished the junior high school, and then they moved us over to the junior high school.
Wow. So to sum things up, because you have such a rich family history here,
Very fortunate.
it's wonderful. And so you've seen lots of change here in Dallas. So just tell me what comes to mind when you think of Dallas, and I mean, 'cause I know you live in Plano, you know, the greater Dallas area,
sure.
and the Dallas you grew up in. What strikes you as some of the biggest change? Especially maybe in the Jewish community. Let's focus on that.
Right. To begin with, the growth, obviously, and my Zadie Singer was one of the founders of Agudas Hachem in South Dallas, okay, which eventually morphed into Shereth Israel. And so I totally remember that. The Jewish schools, which we didn't have growing up. I mean, we went to Hebrew school. I went to Hebrew school for exactly 6 months, and my daddy said, "Oh, you're a girl." And there were no bat mitzvahs back then. So there was no reason for me to learn Hebrew in my daddy's mind. Just like if I was going to be a secretary, I didn't need to go to college. And I don't blame my daddy for anything. I mean, that's the mindset. And one of the biggest things that I appreciate the most about the day and age we live in as a Jewish woman is the acceptance. Acceptance of everybody and everything in our lives. The diversity that we welcome in as Jews, it did not exist back then. Let me put it that way. And I work towards that. I work towards people being who they are and being happy. And I always tell my son, you can be as selfish as you want to be, because if you don't take care of yourself first, you can't take care of anybody else. But the first time I see you acting self-centered, I'm just going to knock you right off your pedestal. That doesn't exist. The world revolves around no one person. And so that's one of the major things I love. I love the ability, although we are condemned for it, the ability to be Jews openly. I love that we share our identity, and for people that are not Jewish, that have the intelligence and also the willingness and the acceptance, understand that we want to understand them and have them understand us. Nobody's better than anybody else.
I think that's a great place to end. This
Okay.
was wonderful.
Good.
Thank you so much, Denise. I
You're
really
welcome.
enjoyed this.
I hope you didn't get to ask me very many questions. I just kind of
This is fun.
babbled on.
We can do it again if there's more things that we missed, but thank you so much.
You're welcome. It
This
was
was
so
lovely.
nice to see you again. If I